that we're just having like this random com cycles, and then we have like an intro, and then I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know who does that. Oh wow, somebody gifted 5 memberships. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 80. And I mean, it's been a boring week. Nothing has happened on the markets. My portfolio barely moved. I don't know. How was your guys' week?
Yeah, the world seems pretty harmonious right about now. the portfolio is doing fine as far as I can tell. I've been, for obvious reasons, just kind of avoiding the noise, so not really just trying to focus on everything else. I think since the last time we talked, I bought a bit more Redwire and just kind of more or less sitting on my hands, just kind of watching the everything happen. So yeah, just kind of waiting to see what happens next. What about you, Maddie?
Pretty good for me. Yeah, just been stacking everything just like normal. I don't know if I cut out. Did I cut out? Am I back?
No, you're good. You're
Very
good.
Just been stacking like normal, putting a lot of money to work into the markets. What else have I been doing? Yeah, added a little bit last week. Whenever I get some money in the door. Trying to think if there's anything big.
Matt, are you buying? Are you not buying 2 houses this month so you can invest more into stocks?
No houses in the forecast at the moment. I have to stack up my paper again. And I don't know. I'm trying to think how much more. I don't know. This isn't Matt buying houses weekly, but yeah, I think I'm trying to decide if I'm going to continue down that for the next year or so, or take a year or two pause and try to make sure that those regulate before, because buying, it takes a lot of cash to be able to do that, and then you end up having liquidity issues like now. But anyway, different story for different day.
All right, and I also just want to say Curtis is here. And we have a very nice announcement. He's been so nice and kind. He actually attended the Space Symposium, where he has met a bunch of very, very interesting people. And he was so kind that he wants to do a giveaway of all these goodies that you see here to 2 people. And the way I understood is the requirements are that if you guys want this, you have to DM him. And you just have to show that you are subscribed. And at one tweet, he said that you're like a member of our channels, but Scotto doesn't have membership. So I guess maybe like members preferred, but if you're subscribed to our channels, that's also good. And Curtis is invited here to tell us his experience about the Space Symposium. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. I've been so bad at communicating on Twitter because I've been super busy finishing the 8 Airbnbs. Photography is on Monday, and then life should be back to normal for me, guys. So cool. All right. And I also, I don't know if I make this announcement. Okay, I will have some upcoming video. I've made some big changes to my investment strategy, and a preview is I'm going full Dave Ramsey, but I don't say more after this.
You're 11 days late of April Fool, so I don't think you're joking.
No, I'm not joking. Exactly. Yeah, cool. So let's go through the news. Just before the show, I had my computer crashed and I had to restart, and I kind of lost all the things that I put together. So I apologize. I need to. Okay, first, I just want to show some cool stuff that Curtis has had. It's actually so cool that we have like one of us basically going to this event. He went with the Angry Astronaut, as far as I understood. And let me see. Are you guys? No, you're not seeing my screen, or you're seeing the wrong screen.
I see Chris Kemp and
Oh yeah.
beautiful looking Curtis.
So here he is with Chris Camp, and maybe he's here with a guy that maybe
Who's
all of
that good
you,
looking guy?
yeah, exactly,
Awesome.
our very own Adam Spice, uh, and what else? So Curtis has seen our 400 million investment in person. So this is a Moneric optical unit. And I must say, I was shocked how freaking big this was. I thought
Me
that
too.
this was like a minute. I was like, how big is this flatellite? Like for me, it was like this little, tiny thing that you just like shoot out of neutron. But I'm like, because when you see a picture of flatellite, like you don't like you barely see this unit on it. So yeah, and let me see if there are any more amazing pictures with him. No, I think that was it. I apologize. And Curtis, if you want to share other pictures, just let us know in the chat, and then I can do it. Cool. So now let's look at what is happening this week. Again, just have to find it through this mess. Okay, so let's start with this news. I'm very curious if you guys have seen this and what you guys think. So the Trump White House sends a budget proposal that basically does a huge cut to science funding at NASA. Eric Berger writes about this via Ars Technica. And there's a lot of numbers here and how much things fall. But when you go into the details, there is, I have to find it again. I apologize for the. Okay, here. Other significant cuts include ending funding for the Mars sample return. So that would mean that Rocket Lab, who has been very heavily lobbying for this program, and I think they had a chance of getting it. I don't know if it was a good chance, but they had a chance of getting it. That would have been a $4 billion contract. Needless to say, huge milestone, huge prestige for our beloved Rocket Lab. A lot of people hope that we would get this, and this program would just disappear. So, what do you guys think about this?
Maddie, do you want to start with this one?
For sure. Yeah, I've been thinking about this one for a little bit because I know some people asked me. I think Tim had wrote up, as I like to call him, tinfoil Tim. It's a joke, but he's been writing some pretty hard hitting questions, which makes sense, right? I think there's a lot of ongoing dispute as to whether or not Doge will actually help or the budget cuts with NASA will actually help. And I think what people need to recognize is specifically for Rocket Lab, a lot of the funding that we're seeing isn't necessarily strictly from NASA, but it's more DoD, Space Development Agency, and that actually might see a rise in actual budget over the coming years. Yes, there is obviously impacts potentially with the Mars sample return, and that's obviously a big gut, but we were never guaranteed to win the MSR anyway. And also, just for those folks that say yes, but Rocket Lab is a big part, and Capstone, Rocket Lab is a big part, and a couple other projects that have obviously done extremely well. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunate part being Rocket Lab has a lot of customers. We have a lot of Japanese customers, Australian customers, European customers that we've been able to launch Electron for many times. And NASA, other than the previous Tropics missions and Capstone missions, I'm trying to remember what other projects we've done recently for them, and I'm happy for people to kind of put that in the comments section. But I think the SDA piece, that's more related to Space Force, and then the haste missions are more related to the DoD as well. But if you are specifically focusing on this, and you do want to take the route of yes, this will impact Rocket Lab, I want to take an opposite approach as well, knowing that you have massive rockets that are more or less reliable and also more costly to launch, being ULA. And if you were to think, if a launch had to happen, um, and you needed it to be mission critical, you would go with the cheapest opportunity out there. And at the moment, Neutron is probably the closest and will be the cheapest rocket 2026 forward. And so, for medium launch at least, and small launch, yes, there might be potentially upcoming ones that have cheaper launch, but it's better than probably the other opportunities that you have out there on the market. So yes, there's obviously some cons associated with if there's a large 50% budget cut that's kind of being proposed, or 25%, or what have you. But at the same time, Rocket Lab, I think, is well positioned in terms of a market leader to be able to endure the storm. And I don't think that NASA specifically will impact us, one, getting Neutron in the air, and then two, getting us to profitability by the first half of 2026.
Well said. I don't have too much else to add.
Guys,
Just to kind of echo to what Matt was saying, it's like if these cuts are going to affect anybody, it's probably least likely. Okay, I'm out. What's up, Curtis?
Hey, man.
No, I sorry. I was just thinking we bring on Curtis to tell us his experience a little bit, what he experienced in Colorado, and then we go back to this MSR topic. I don't know how long we can have Curtis, so I was thinking we just use this opportunity. So
Is it me or is my head really huge?
I mean, you are the star of today's show.
You know, when you 10x your portfolio in a year, your head is allowed to be huge.
That was last year.
That was last year. Okay.
So your head should be half the size.
Bygones. Yeah.
Should be half the size this year. Yeah.
Jeez. Well, you know, luckily though, this year, 2025, I'm not really actively trading. All I'm doing is buying and writing out some options that I got on the book. So I did way too much of that last year. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, this symposium was absolutely awesome. You know, just first thing, I don't know if he watches this at all, but, you know, shout out to Angry Astronaut. His name's Jordan, actually. The guy, I don't know how many people ever watch his stuff, but there definitely is no appreciation how intelligent this guy is and how much he knows about the space industry. You know, we'd walk up to some people like Firefly, for example. If you look at his impromptu interview with Firefly, you know, immediately just off the cuff, he is just spitting out information regarding everything about their company. He knows everything, you know, what they're doing, all the details. Then you go to the next company that makes spacesuits, you know, then we go to Axiom, same thing. And it's all right off the cuff. He's not scripting anything. He's not outlining anything. The guy is just, he's super sharp, man, super sharp. So, you know, I wish him the best of luck with his channel. You know, he's doing pretty good. You know, that's his livelihood. So I think he's doing all right.
Is that so? That's his background. Is he's like an amateur space guy, but he's obviously putting a lot of rigor into his channel.
Yeah, he's put a lot of rigor into his channel. You know, I'll let you go research his history and whatnot. You know, it's not my place to get into that, but he, you know, he's been a space nut since he was a kid, and like I said, he just, you know, he sucks up everything about the industry, and a Rocket Lab shareholder, mind you, which was very nice to find out. You know, he has a couple hundred shares, but whatever it is, you know, that's great. So, but you know, the one of the most exciting things I think I saw was their delivery system at the show. You know, they've typically had the ring delivery system. I don't know if I can I share my screen at all?
Yeah, sure.
No idea how to
do
this.
Should be like a little present button at the bottom.
Ah. Well, we don't have to do this, but you guys can go to my Twitter to check it out.
Yeah, if you want, I can share it from your Twitter. Let me see if.
Yeah, there's two posts that I did. One is on their traditional ring system, and then the second one is on their new multi-point system. So, you know, their traditional ring system, basically any satellite or any payload had to be designed specifically to mate up to that ring system. So they would have a mating ring integrated right through design. So from engineering from day one on that satellite, they'd have to be working with clients to make sure that that's correct. Or obviously, if they're building the delivery system, then they do it. But the new multi-point system, other companies make multi-point systems, but it gives them the capability, obviously, with Neutron, when they're stacking up loads of satellites in the cone. The multi-point system, that's the ring system right there. That's the traditional one. The multi-point system will give them 4 mounting points on each satellite in the payload on Neutron, and let them be able to deploy each payload as they need to. So obviously, the second stage will come out of the rocket, the Hippo, and then the rocket goes back home. Yeah, right there. If you look what I'm holding right there, that's just a mock-up, but you can see the pins behind it. So each one of those is part of the multi-point. So what they can do is they can actually deploy, as the second stage is going to different orbits, from what I understand, they can deploy the satellites as needed, but also the 4 points are independent. So for example, the top point might eject, and 500 milliseconds, half second later, the bottom points will eject. So what that can do is actually position the satellite's orientation as it's leaving the second stage to put it in the proper orientation, which is really cool. So obviously this is something they're not going to have to source, but obviously they can also, this is a product they can sell. If you saw my other Twitter post, I mentioned the ring, and the majority of the use of the ring in 2025 has all been on on SpaceX launches, not Rocket Lab launches for other satellites. So this opens up another big market on just components for them. I don't know what these sell for. I tried doing some research on it, and the last information I got was a couple of years old, but they were in over $100,000 for these separation systems. So again, I don't know what they currently are, but really cool technology, a really cool new product. The second thing, I talked to him about Flatellite, and obviously, one of my main concerns was, because I've seen them in person. I actually saw a Mynaric terminal, 3-4 weeks ago, and it was a prototype at the Space Foundation Discovery Center here in town. And the one that they have at the show is a lot bigger than the one they had at the Discovery Center. And but they confirmed they will fit perfectly fine on Flatellite applications, no problem. So, when you look at the stack up of Flatellite in Neutron's nose cone, they look super thin, but you got to understand how big these freaking things are. So, they look super thin, but what's the diameter of the nose cone? Is it 5 or 7 meters on the nose cone? I know it's smaller than the base, but
I want to say 7.
Yeah. So as you're looking at a Flatellite that takes up the whole space of the nose cone, and it's 7 meters in diameter, you got to understand, they're not flat. They're these things have got to be 24 to 36 inches or more, in thickness.
It's like when they don't put Peter back on the picture, it's like you can't see the sizes. So they need to have like Peter back as our measurement unit on every picture. And
for scale.
Yeah.
You're pretty tall, Kurt. You're 6'2", right? So that means Adam.
I used to be 6'3", but I'm a lot older than you young guys. So you shrink when you get up there in the years. So I'm about 6'2" now. But the other question I asked about Flatellite is, is this going to be exclusively for Neutron launch? And it is not going to be exclusively for Neutron launch. And if you have a different launch vehicle, if the demand is there and the requirement, the guy was, he wasn't really committed on giving me a definitive answer, but he led me to believe that they will build that for whatever customer wants to launch it on, specifically for that launch vehicle. Of course, the volume has to be there. They're not going to probably do one. The whole intention of Flatellite is constellation. So,
and that makes sense because technically, I think the Flatellite's going to be what they designed for the SDA.
Yeah.
And so technically they haven't won the contract to launch the SDA yet. So in that respect, like, you can't be designing something that can't be launched from a different vehicle, right? So,
Yeah, and I don't think they can't. They can't go wrong just going through with all the engineering for launch on Neutron. I mean, that's a full package they can offer a customer. You want 20 satellites for your dedicated application? No problem. We can slap them all on one launch on Neutron. So the Mynaric booth was it was cool to see the terminals. I have to say it was kind of depressing at their booth. It looked like, okay, well, we already paid all the money to go to Space Symposium last year, so we better send a couple people out there. They had literally no brochures. They had 3 people there, and they had the 2 terminals, the Mark III and the Mark 3.1. And
But by the way, did you manage to ask them how the Rocket Lab deal is going? Because it's
nobody would comment on it. The Mynaric guys, I got a feeling from the one gentleman I was speaking to, there was an underlying sense of, failure is not the right word, maybe just disappointment. But at the same time, the comment was, hey, look, we live to fight another day. So, the technology can go through to fruition. It's not like it just went in the can, when they shut down. But nobody would comment on, time frame or anything like that. And I didn't even ask Adam about it at all. We actually were just talking about stuff like conference calls. And the last thing I actually told Adam was, you have to do the quarterly calls with Vince and the crew. It's a must.
Thank you.
And he actually made a comment. He says, I really enjoy those. We do have to do those.
Cool.
So, but I let him know how important they are to retail investors. So,
no, thank you.
They are great. And I'm just happy to have gotten one call. So the fact that they've been on multiple now, I know
I think doesn't hurt to put the bug in his ear. So, and super nice guy, man, super down to earth. And, we're about the same age. Obviously his net worth's a little bit more than mine, but super nice guy.
And by the way,
ask him? Sorry, go ahead, Vince.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, what did you manage to get out of him? Tell us all the inside info.
Did you get the merchandise deal, or what's the deal?
No, I wasn't there for that. But there's he was actually pretty busy. There was a lot of people around. I didn't want to take up a lot of his time. I did tell him my appreciation for him and Pete on the conference calls. The fact that they don't sugarcoat and give you a bunch of bullshit like other companies do. I mean, even Jensen at NVIDIA in their conference calls, they're even with him, there's stuff in there he's sugarcoating for the stock market to try to help share price. These guys don't do that. And I just let him know that retail investors appreciate just, straightforward. Tell us what you're going to do and just do it. And they always have,
What you see is what you get.
Delays happen. I mean, that's just part of the business. But, there's not anything I've ever heard on a call that they haven't followed through with. So that's pretty much from the Rocket Lab front. They had, the rest of the booth was cool, but it was all stuff that we all already know and have seen and whatnot. But Pete was there Monday and Tuesday, and unfortunately, I wasn't there until Wednesday and Thursday. But hey, that's okay, because I'm sure he was even more busier than Adam. So,
Curtis, one question. So you had you met with Chris Kemp. How did he unblock you from Twitter?
No, he hasn't unblocked me, and I actually had a couple of guys actually tag him, because since I'm blocked, I don't think he can see stuff I post. So yeah, as of today, he still has not unblocked me. But
okay.
I made a comment once. He complained about American Airlines service and something, and I made a general comment. And I mean, oh, you mean like the kind of service you gave your shareholders or something like that? It was, it wasn't even something major. I wasn't like, hey, you're an a-hole or anything. And he blocked me. So, and I think Garcia, he blocked Garcia or Francisco. I can't remember which one. One of them sent out a tweet showing that he blocked them as well. But yeah, I mean, I wish he had unblocked me. I mean, he was actually very nice, very humble. All the bad PR he got after the movie came out from Ashley, if you looked at Ashley's last interview with him, he seemed very humble and like, he may have, learned not to be so cocky about stuff. And maybe that was just for the movie. Maybe he was just putting on a show. I don't know. In person, the guy was super nice. We had a nice little chat. He asked me if I'm ever in the Bay Area. I told him I used to live out there, and we had a nice little chat about that. And he's like, "Hey, man, you don't even need an appointment. Just show up at Astra anytime you want. You're welcome, and we'll give you a tour, whatever." And he basically indicated anybody can. So, very nice guy. I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but I wish he'd unblock me.
Yeah. But to be fair, yeah, I mean, I can understand where it's easy to dunk on somebody once something like that happens. But when that movie was being filmed and a lot of the book and everything the like was kind of being done, Astor was still kind of going through and had promise, right? And it wasn't like
Yeah.
they had already, closed their doors with a lot of stuff. I mean, maybe some writing was on the wall that they weren't going to be nearly as successful as say Rocket Lab. And by the time the movie came out, I mean, Rocket Lab had already launched probably close to 40, 50 launches, and Astra had, I guess, only done their 4 or 5. But anyway, it's easy to dunk on something in retrospect, but in 2017, 2018, when a lot of that stuff was being done and filmed, it was still kind of in its infancy.
This is kind of off subject, but he made a comment in the interview with Ashley Vance, the last one, about the process that they did go back. They went back private, but he made one comment about the expense of being a public company, and I can actually, I can sympathize with that 100%. Years and years ago, in another life, I was involved with a startup, and we went public, and I'll tell you what, even the smallest public company. And I'm using probably 20-year-old figures here. It'll cost you $1 million a year just for everything you have to do to be a public company, as far as compliance and as far as accounting and whatnot. So, today I can't even imagine it. It was probably costing them $5 million just to be a public company. So and that's money out the door. You're not going to see a ROI on. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, you have to hire an entire investor relations team and.
Yeah.
In the quarterly stuff, it's like otherwise, and then file for the SEC. It has to be written in a certain format for the 10Ks and all that. It's like, yeah.
And think about it. If you're private, then you can put out all these press releases when like we hit this milestone, now we hit that milestone, and none of your delays is really being publicized. But when you're like on the public market, you have a lot of accountability that I think is not suited for like companies pre-rocket launches and pre-cadence and
agreed. Well, I mean, any more questions about the Space Symposium? You got me. So
yeah, I mean, did you manage to because I'm very curious, like how other companies view Rocket Lab, like if it's favorable or not favorable.
Extremely favorable. There was noticeably a lot of people that weren't there. I was big credit to Tori Bruno. He's a legend in the industry, and I ask questions on Twitter all the time. He always answers me. He actually lives just like 30 minutes north of here, but because their headquarters is in Denver. But so I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll be able to meet Tori in person. Now ULA wasn't there, Blue Origin wasn't there, SpaceX was not there, although they sponsored the badge lanyards or whatever. They were all SpaceX, but yeah, SpaceX wasn't there. Firefly was there with the Blue Ghost, but they didn't have anything out in terms of launch. But Rocket Lab's held in high regard. SpaceX not so much. I asked a guy there. I actually went to the Space Symposium back in 2012, I think it was, and the whole event has changed dramatically. When I went there in 2012, as far as commercial companies, sure, you had your Lockheeds and your Boeings and all that stuff, but SpaceX was really it. And then the rest of it was all government and whatnot. Now it's all private companies, and now it's all commercial space. But I had a guy make a comment to me. He's like, yeah, SpaceX won't come to the symposium anymore because they don't believe in going after customers. Customers go after them. That was the only thing he said, and I just took it at face value that, SpaceX doesn't feel a need to market at all. But at the same time, what do they have to market? Because, 75 to 80% of their launches is their own product.
Exactly.
That's why there's a 2-year backlog on any ride share. They're at capacity. So, But yeah, a lot of those guys were not there. All the other stuff was there. The Axiom spacesuit was there, which was cool. All 3 lander mock-ups were there. The intuitive machines and whatnot. Those were pretty cool to see. Yeah, and just little companies that are just doing their own little unique stuff in space you never would have thought of. I saw some of these companies and it's like, why are you at the trade show? And and they would tell me, and they would just tell me stuff that went right over my head. It's like, science guys.
Yeah. By the way, how is the intuitive machines like? How's the morale of those guys? Or after the two failed lunar.
Actually, their lander or their rover was there. There wasn't really any people from Intuitive Machines there. So, as a matter of fact, who is it that's doing the arm on the Intuitive Machines? It's mounted on the back, to dig up samples or whatever. That's who was basically running that booth. So, yeah, there was nobody there that I could see from Intuitive Machines at all. So.
All right.
Any companies that you were surprised to see there that we don't really acknowledge here on the channel?
Oh,
we've talked about Firefly. We've talked a little bit about Lunar. We've talked a little bit about Astra, Rocket Lab.
Yeah, it as an industry investor, it baffles me how much money the old guys are spending at these events. You went there and Boeing's booth was just, the money they're spending, they've got to be spending 10 times what Rocket Lab is spending. Rocket Lab's getting all the deals. Boeing's not, but they're spending all this money. Same thing with Lockheed. Their booth was huge. And you look at everything in those big guys' booth, and it's just like, no, it's all just old news, It's just not exciting. At least it wasn't to me. So, but as far as new companies, a lot of scientific stuff, like I said, that they blew stuff way over my head. But nothing else really stood out. Rocket Lab was probably in my opinion, in the main hall, was probably the preeminent place to be. Not in the main hall. The main thing was the vast space station module. They had a full-size mock-up outside that you could go check out, which was pretty cool. And then, of course, Redwire had a presence there. I briefly met Pete Canito, the CEO of Redwire. Same thing, though, they were super busy and whatnot. And Redwire, I like as a company, and I'm investing in them. I definitely don't get as excited about Redwire as I do Rocket Lab. But they do a lot of cool stuff that Rocket Lab does not do, and that's kind of why I like them.
All right. Is there any companies that you see in the future might be, like going on the stock market and an interesting investment?
I would ask a lot of them when you go in public, specifically Firefly, and they just give you a smile and laugh. My gut feel is that Firefly is positioning themselves to go public soon with their new CEO. If you just watch the way the guy talks about him, I really think they are positioning to do an IPO. Obviously, with recent events in the past weeks, they're probably not looking to do it very soon. But I would totally, as an industry investor, be interested in investing in Firefly. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about what they're doing with the lunar lander stuff, and look at their track record even on launch. They got a pretty damn good track record.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, the lunar landing, like, I don't know, for me it was like you flipped a coin, like on Firefly.
No, you flipped the lander. Intuitive.
Yeah. Exactly. But this one was the right side up. So they became a very serious company in my eyes, like just from that landing, and I guess in many people's eyes. So it was a major achievement.
Well, you guys know I like making stuff and I like sharing stuff. So here's my latest project I'm doing on one of my laser machines.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
Whoops.
That is awesome.
Anyway.
Did you give one of those to Adam?
No. I did give them all notebooks, and I put a little barcode in there. I'm like, bespoke notebooks. But yeah, I'm staying away from selling Rocket Lab stuff, man. I'm not gonna.
The one with the Rocket Mortgage pages in it, or without?
With Rocket Mortgage pages, of course. That's a collector's item, Matt. You got to hang on to that.
Yeah, man.
That's a one of a kind.
One of a kind.
Yeah.
Awesome, Curtis. So I just want to remind everyone that there is a giveaway that Curtis is doing. I have to find it.
Yeah,
I
just
think I do.
DM me with a screenshot showing that you subscribe to Vince or Matt. You can't do one with Scott. He doesn't do subscriptions. You need to, Scott.
I know. I need to set it up. I keep meaning to, and it just
But anyway, yeah, just DM me a screenshot, and when we get them all in, I'll let it run through like Friday or something, and then I'll just assign a number to everybody, and I'll throw it in a random number generator online and pick 2.
Yeah, here is
There's two of those that are going to be given away.
Yeah. I'm subscribed to Matt, so I can enter, and I'm part
Yeah.
I'm part of Scotto's patron. So
You guys are not eligible. Sorry.
shit.
I take
cool.
care of you guys. You know that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Of all those, do a lot of those? I know that the tags in the upper left are sold on like Rocket Lab's website, but is a lot of this other stuff? I'm trying to look for any Rocket Lab particular patches.
Well, a lot of those stickers are all Rocket Lab. The Space Invaders is Rocket Lab. The one above it. So the 4 on the left are all Rocket Lab. The 4 on the right are all Rocket Lab. I think that's it for Rocket Lab stuff in the giveaway. Other than obviously the Virginia Spaceport Authority.
That's very
So
nice.
there's 3. There's a Virginia right in the middle, Virginia Spaceport Authority sticker, an embroidered patch, and a challenge coin. They were nice enough to give us that because they weren't giving these out to willy-nilly. But that's obviously they're in charge of Wallops, and the lady that was working the booth, I asked her how many Rocket Lab launches have you seen? She said every single one. I said even the secret ones. She's like, yes.
nice.
Yeah, talk about jealousy. But yeah, so they're Virginia Spaceport Authority, super cool. If you go on their website, the very first thing you see on their videos is all Rocket Lab. I mean, they're a super supporter of Rocket Lab, and of course, I've never been there, but I would imagine that all the excitement around that launch facility is Rocket Lab obviously is making more noise than anybody up there.
Mm-hmm.
So super cool.
Yeah. Awesome, Curtis. So if you want to stay on, you can. If you're busy, then thank you so much for.
No, people don't need to look at my mug. You guys can do your regular thing, and I'll just I'll listen in on YouTube.
Awesome,
Always
Curtis.
a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah.
All right. Nice seeing you guys. Scott,
See you, Curtis.
your package is going out Monday.
Sweet. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Ciao. Cool. That was really cool. So thanks again for Curtis for coming on. And now we can go back to discussing the cancellation of the possible cancellation of the Mars sample return mission. And we interrupted Scott. Do you remember what you were saying, or?
Yeah. Just quick housekeeping about the diameter. It is a 5-meter diameter fairing. I mentioned it. I was pretty sure it was 7, but it's the.
Scott, you're the numbers guy. You just lost
right?
a few points in our eyes.
No, I'm the notes guy. This is why, because top of my head I'm always a little fuzzy sometimes. But yeah, 7-meter diameter at the base, but 5-meter diameter fairing. That's before all the changes. So I assume it's similar, but 5-meter fairing. Coming back to the budget cuts, though, I was just more or less echoing what Matt said. Like, it's going to be not great for Rocket Lab, but worse for legacy players. And even like this particular example, the Mars sample return, it's probably heresy to say this out loud, but I think I've mentioned it on a previous episode with you guys too. It's like if we're sending humans there in the next 5 to 10 years, just have them pick it up. Or even I think Optimus, if I know that Elon has made a lot of timelines that have not quite came to fruition, but they're talking about sending Optimus and Cybertrucks even up there in the next, I don't know, I can't remember what he said, 4 or 5 years or something. So makes a lot more sense for them to pick it up. I hate to say it, but it's probably how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I never had the more simple return in any part of in any valuation that I did for Rocket Lab. So for me, it was always like, if it happens, it's a very nice bonus.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree with 100% with what you guys are saying. I mean, like, the plan for the Starship is to like go there, and then they want to send back some. And if there's Optimus robots going there, and there is like Starships coming back, even if the timeline is not is late, it's still like, why reinvent the wheel and yeah, like pay for something that is sort of being done already, or yeah, in the works. But with that said, it's just a proposal so far, and I think that this is just is not even like, how do you call it? It's still a rumor technically that this happened. I don't think that Eric Berger has seen the actual proposal, and then they need to vote on this, and things can change. So it's not for sure that it's being canned, this program.
Yeah, and I think I want to just add one additional thing. I mean, I think the United States government is aware of this, but maybe not the rest of the United States, especially the public. There's definitely an ongoing space race, comparable to what we've seen in the 50s and 60s, and really, I think it's still between China, Russia, the United States, and maybe a couple other players that are fourth and fifth. But I still think that, and maybe even Europe is in there as well, but they're behind, as Peter likes to acknowledge. But there's definitely going to be continued investment within the commercial space arena because of that. I doubt that there will be a pullback in overall pace in terms of where we're going for these missions. I think it's more along the lines of being more conscious, maybe a little bit less research on things that don't have that push forward. So if they're going to spend less, I think it's more about prioritization of the funds, and instead of maybe the broad spend that we were used to, maybe focused spend specifically on things like Mars and really getting out into exploration, maybe rather than deepening of, let's say, I don't know, other galaxies and stuff like that. Because yes, spending on other galaxies is great right now, but if really the focus in the next 5 to 10 years is enabling space missions to Mars, then it's kind of like, well, why are you spending hundreds of millions of dollars on these other galaxies at the moment? So I think it's about prioritization more than anything, if there were to be cuts. So I found it very hard to believe that it would really slow things down in a massive manner where it would actually be noticeable to, say, the public. It might be noticeable to somebody that is more in the organizations themselves, but I think for us as ongoers and bylookers. But that's just my opinion, and I'm an optimist most of the time.
Yeah, if I really like what they're doing with the moon clips missions, that they like giving very low amounts to certain startups, and then then the ones that succeed will get bigger contracts, and then if they succeed, they get even bigger contracts. I think if they like use this with what you said, like with this focus spending, that like they say, like we want to go this direction, and 5 companies, or like give us your proposals, and then we choose a few with minimal budget, and okay, like you 3 are doing great, okay, here's more money. I think that would, yeah, it would suck for legacy space, but I think it would really spur the space economy and really make the spending. I mean, like the Firefly lunar landing, I think is done from unbelievable. Like, even if you consider that the Intuitive Machines ones were like a total waste, because I mean, okay, you can't say total waste because there was some things that they could do, but I think overall, like NASA still has paid a lot less than if they would have just hired a legacy actor to do it. All right. So we go on to the next one, and we keep going back to the Space Symposium. I don't want to bore you guys, but it basically, Rocket Lab has come out with a bunch of new products and new partnerships. So the first one was a partnership announced with Beyond Gravity. And to be honest, when I read this, it seems like what they're offering is pre-integrated avionics and flight software for constellations. This to me seems like that they're trying to become like a one-stop shop for space, which they have said, and like try to make parts that integrate with a lot of satellites, and that where the end customer basically doesn't really have to do anything. They're just like, we need a solar panel. Okay, how big is how many watts do we need? Okay, Rocket Lab has a product for that. Okay, the satellite needs to fly. Okay, we take that, and like it becomes a Lego, and then you piece together your satellites, and then it's very cheap because you're using these standard. It's more like the IKEA of space. That's what they're trying to become. Here is the other announcement about standardized how do you call it, space solar, which they're calling Star Ray. And here is an announcement about
Vince, sorry to cut you off. Should we be seeing the Star Ray right now? We're still seeing the Beyond Gravity slide.
Yes, thank you. Tech
There we
support.
go. Yeah.
Here we go. So, and here is the reaction wheels, where they're offering a 4mm one now, 5nm one, that is for satellites between 250 and 600 kilograms. So we go back to the first one. We should go back. Here we go. So what do you guys think about this? And have you guys heard about Beyond Gravity before? And can you give us some more color on this?
I don't have too much to add on the Beyond Gravity one. They're new to me, and I mean, to be honest, I don't entirely understand this announcement because it sounds like there's a middleman for something that Rocket Lab could just do anyways. So I'm sure I'm just missing what exactly they do or something. Do you know this one, Maddie?
Sorry, what was the question? I was answering a comment.
It's if you're familiar with Beyond Gravity or what they're doing here.
No idea anything about it.
Okay.
You guys remember that Adam Spice said that they're open to like acquisitions and like partnerships without like buying actual companies. And then when I saw this announcement, and I was like, is this like a trusted someone where they, like they couldn't buy them, so instead like they're like partnering with them, and Rocket Lab found that's an easier way to integrate them into their system. I just, again, don't, other than this pre-integrated avionics, I don't know much more about Beyond Gravity.
Yeah, not too sure.
Okay, we move on to the next one, the next one, which is the Star Ray and the 5mm reaction wheels. Only comment I have on this is that I'm surprised how fast Rocket Lab is innovating, and they just keep coming out with new products. What do you guys think?
This one was kind of like surprising in a strange way, because I check Rocket Lab's website quarterly because I like to just see like literally anything quantitative, like how many solar panels were sold at a certain period, for example. And I won't over explain. I noticed this 5NMS wheel. It was posted or added to Rocket Lab's website sometime between mid-December and mid-January, but never formally announced. And I found that really odd because, I mean, we know all about all their other reaction wheels. So this particular design, the Heritage, is built from, the mechanical design is from the 0.06, 0.2, 0.4, and 1 NMS models, which are just the smaller, but not the smallest. They're from the smaller models. And the reinforcement for the heavy rotors is inherited from the 12 NMS model. That's the really big one, the one that they produce 2,000 units per year. And the rad-tolerant electronics, the design is also inherited from the 0.2, 0.4, 1.0, and 12 NMS models. So what I'm really trying to drive towards is like the, I guess, curiosity point of what the capacity is going to be for these. And kind of like with that weird like lack of announcement, I was under the impression that this is probably what we're going to have strapped onto the Flatellite, I suppose. And given that this is built upon the 12 NMS, you'd assume that not just the unit, but the line itself, I assume that these are probably going to be very high production. And yeah, probably, I'm assuming these are going to be on Flatellite. And one additional talking point as well is like the mass, I guess you'd say, or the classes that this can embody, if you will, is because if it can go anywhere between 250 to 600 kilograms, Rocket Lab is no stranger to testing the like the tech on Electron and then kind of bringing it over to Neutron. So it's really cool that we could test this wheel before Neutron's even ready to fly the Flattellites, because the 250 kilogram would be a satellite that would pair nicely with the Electron, assuming, right? Somebody can correct me, but that's my take on it anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
I have nothing to really add. Scott knows way more about reaction wheels than I do. So.
All right. Well, that was all the news and everything that I had for this week. So I don't know if the audience wants to ask us some questions, then please go ahead. Yeah, what do you guys think about the market? I feel that we should speak about how crazy the market has been, and tariffs and Canada 51st state, and I mean that has not been really the talk lately, but who knows?
Yeah, there's like so much just emotion right now. I can't even. I'm not like off social media or anything, but it's just I find it hard whether it's like talking about individual companies. I feel like there's always the caveat of like, yeah, we'll Trump this or Elon that, or just like name it. It just everything feels so divisive right now, whether it's about tariffs or whether you're in Canada here, like there's an election in like 2 weeks, and it just feels like no matter where you look, everyone's very, very amped up and more emotional than logical. So what I'm trying to do is just block out the noise and buy companies at fair prices and hope that everything else not even hope, just know that everything's going to fall into place regardless. And it's just, yeah, not the worst time to limit social media exposure.
Wise words, Scott. Yeah, I want to give people a little bit of thought about, just thinking about who's giving you this news, right? And what are they actually trying to do? And they're trying to get you to be glued to the TV. They're trying to get you to watch their advertisements. Even the people on X, right? They're trying to get you to get clickbait you to be able to interact, which will help their engagements and get them monetary payments. So just always be cautious, of who's giving you the news and why, and what are they saying, and how they say it. And at the end of the day, I think you need to, instead of just regurgitating what you see on a screen or what you see in terms, do your own due diligence and understand, well, what is actually going to happen with these things, right? Instead of just assuming on April 2nd that the world is going to burn up in flames and the United States is going to completely isolate themselves. And, here we are literally 10 days later, and a lot of tariffs have either been paused or rolled back substantially. And I could have told you that on April 2nd. So, I think a lot of people.
Adam, you're going to be part of Adam Schiff's investigation, because he wants to know who knew that Trump would flip-flop on tariffs. I almost commented on Twitter, please investigate me. I knew that they would not stay this high.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's astonishing, and I'm not trying to say I told you so or anything like that, but it's just like it was pretty evident that nothing was going to be that rigorous, and in fact, I would have been extremely surprised and would have eaten my hat, as I said to everybody on X, that if things were to have remained that way, I definitely would. I'd probably be eating a hat on this live stream, just like Peter Beck did with the Neutron announcement. So, um, I would just give people caution. I think in reality, he is our president. Yes, you can have criticisms of him, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's some sort of uh, what's the word? Like dictator that really is trying to put the country in poor health. Um, I honestly believe that regardless of you have criticisms or not, he's our president. And you should support him. Just like I did with Biden, even though I didn't really like Biden as a president, I still supported him because he was our president. And at the end of the day, it's America. If you're an American, of course, it's for the betterment of America. Yes, you can have your criticisms, and that's what the First Amendment is for, to be able to have your free speech and everything of the like. But at the end of the day, just digest things a little bit before you start losing your mind and getting emotional, because emotions is what's going to drive you to make irrational decisions in your portfolio. And at the end of the day, I want you to kind of, like Scott said, look through the noise, comb through the noise, and make wise investment decisions for the long term. And I know some of you guys aren't long-term investors. You might be options, derivatives traders, etc. So it's easy for me to say look for the long term because I'm more of a 5 to 10 year focused investor. But yeah, my hope is that you guys can sift through a little bit of that and not get so emotional and just actually interpret what's actually happening.
Yeah,
with some intuition and some actual what's the word I'm looking for? Rigor and thought rather than emotion.
I was thinking that this is my favorite crash of all time because the things that are crashing the market, they are long-term very, very bullish things for the market, right? So it's like almost as if a company would say that, like, look, we are reinvesting this year's earnings into Neutron, let's say, like if we use Rocket Lab things, and then the future is going to be bright, and then the stock would crash crater because they're like investing into their future. And Joseph Carlson actually did a really good video about how like every dip because of a tariff is actually a buy. So number one, how many of you guys have a thesis on a company, and how many of you just ask yourself, included what the tariff level is, and that's why you're buying the company because that's their tariff level. Like it's not even in our like if yeah, my point is like if this news would destroy a company like Rocket Lab or Shopify or Tesla or whatever we're investing in, it was like the wrong company to look at in the first place. Like it was not a good business model. And number two is with these tariffs, there can only be two outcomes. One, it's hurting the US economy, and then Trump will take it away or flip flop or whatever you want to call it. And two, he gets what he wants, which is super effing good for the US economy. So the only two outcomes is good or really good. And and then the third thing that I want to comment on is I'm very, very surprised how, like when the market is bullish, everybody's like, I want to buy this stock at this price, and I want to pull back. And, can you believe that people were buying Rocket Lab when it was, like in the tens? And then now we are there. And then even my own dad called me and he's like, the market is falling. And I was like, so? And he's like, should we do something? And I'm like, why? And then he was like, and then he texted me. I mean, I felt like he was like pushing that we should, like get out of positions. And then the next day, everything was 20% up. And then I just like sent him a picture like, this is why, don't be a panicant. No, like, don't panic, So, I think if you're a long-term investor, there's two kind of markets for you. One, which is super good because prices are cheap and you're buying. And two, the second market is prices are up and you have made a lot of money. So you're either having a good time or you're having a good time. And that's why it's very nice to be a long-term investor.
Well said.
Panic and Skywalker. That's what you should call your dad.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Thank you so much for today's episode. I really enjoyed it. The update from Curtis was really amazing. Such a fantastic community that we have, like, guys, boots on the ground, and we get like the really what it's like to be at these events.
Actually, funny enough, when I was watching I was hoping to watch the ULA launch, and unfortunately, they got delayed due to weather for the first Kuiper launch as well. And they're like, "And let's hear from our meteorologist." And I was like, "I know that name. Why do I know that name?" And here they bring up the meteorologist for ULA, and it's a guy I went to high school with. And I was like, "Holy crap!"
Wow.
I was like, "No way." And here he is giving this meteorology presentation about why they might not launch because of the weather, and that's exactly what happened. So I thought it was pretty funny. I was, small world, right? But yeah, I'm hoping to find more people that I know in the space agency
Yeah,
or industry, rather, not agency.
yeah. Awesome, guys. So, oh yeah, Hustle Brothers, thanks for being here, and let's speak more on Twitter on how we get you guys on the show. I really didn't have time this week, so don't.
Yeah, we got the link. Normally, Vince was really good giving us the link like 2 hours before, but he did let us know that it would be late, and I think we got it like 20, 15 minutes before. So.
Yeah, like Curtis announced this giveaway, and then like I just went to the toilet, and then I opened Twitter, and then it said like, Vince, read your DMs, and then he was like having things posted for like a day of how like he's helping the channel. And I'm like, oh my God, how rude that I like, couldn't repost and didn't answer anything. So it's nothing personal. I'm just crazy busy. But I will show you guys some posts about the Airbnbs. They're really turning out nice.
Good.
So, yeah. All right. Thank you again for everyone. And see you guys next week.
Cheers all.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.